welcome back to another lap guide in the iRacing Formula iR-04. I'm Bart Horsten, and today we're doing Silverstone Grand Prix. First, we're going to have a look at a hot lap, and then we'll get into the lap guide. Okay, so starting the lap guide at Silverstone Grand Prix, my local track. We're coming through the last corner. The only thing I would say is you can slow down the chicane before starting a qualifying lap or a flying lap, so you can hold it left through the left part of the chicane and try and open up your exit, which will probably give you about half a tenth, so it is worth doing. And into turn one, which is Abbey. This is quite an easy corner in this car. Should be flat out for pretty much everyone, even first lap on cold tires. If you're a little bit apprehensive, you can start with a lift. But the main thing here is in most cars, you want to be on that left entry curb, but it's a bit bumpy on this version of the track, as this is pre the current resurface. And I think it slows the car down a bit and unsettles it. So personally, I don't run onto the curb, and the car doesn't need it to take the corner flat. So I would advise just using the white line. And then here, make sure we get onto the inside curb. This does actually help turn the car a little bit, I find. So it is worth a little bit of time to take this. And it's also just, the shortest line through the corner as well. So having our right wheels up onto the black and white, if you cut your right wheels onto the green, you risk getting off track if you clip a bit of the dirt on the way in. So be careful with that. So here, just being really smooth with the steering. Flat out all the way through, going to the edge of the track. Again, we don't have our left wheels over the black and white. We should be okay with off tracks, but you will hit a bit of a bump there and it will slow you down a bit. So here we need to focus on positioning the car really early into village. So it's important to hug the left side through turn 2 or farm and just keep left, as far left as possible. Now, again, just like turn 1 or Abbey, I don't recommend using this curb in this car. I find it doesn't really like it when you hit the brakes. It feels a little bit like it's taking away braking efficiency and upsets the car a little bit. So I would say don't use the entry curb here, even though it does widen the track a little bit. That's something you can play around with, though, if you want to. So the main thing is getting straight and on the left-hand side of the track, parallel to the white line, which can be a little bit difficult through here. So make sure you do work your way back here. And it is one of those things that's, free lap time if you're looking for it. So, every lap, making sure we're back on the left-hand side with the white line, hitting quite a high pressure on the brake pedal and down to third gear. into Village. Now, this is quite a challenging sequence of corners, Village and then Loop. And the main reason for that is it's a bit of a trade-off. The faster you go through Village, the more you're going to compromise the loop, but the exit out of the loop is probably the more important part. In a light single-seater like this, you can push the Village corner quite a bit and get back. So I don't have an exact margin, but you'll see we should go about 2/3 wide on the exit and not be able to bring it back all the way to the right into the loop, but most of the way back to the right. I find the most important thing personally for this corner is that we're really attacking the brakes on the entry because there's quite a bit of camber at the apex, and it's one of those corners where you can carry more speed than you think if you don't know the corner. So I would definitely recommend just focus on pushing the entry quite a bit, and so bleeding out the brakes and rolling quite a bit of speed. And you want to take as much curve as possible, as well as we're not compromising the amount of speed we're carrying. You can also be quite quick with getting back to throttle. You can see I don't get the full throttle here, and that's just a case of managing how wide I'm going. But definitely get to throttle. It doesn't have to be full throttle because there's no real exit after this. It's more about stabilizing the car, and especially with this car, if you get on the throttle here, it'll stop the rear moving around and it'll sell the rear end. So it's really important to just pick up the throttle once we've got the full amount of steering lock on in the middle of the corner. So now, again, really important to focus on our positioning and getting back to the right as far as possible for the second gear of the loop. So you can see what I'm saying. We go about 2/3 of the track out to the left-hand side. We're about a car width away from the left-hand side of the track. If you're on the black and white curve, you know you've gone too far. And if you're too far right, then you've probably gone too slow through Village. So I think about here is usually a good balance, all things considered. And then here, I find for the loop, it's quite a tricky corner because it is a slow hairpin style corner, and you're not coming at it dead straight, as you can see here. And in a GT car, you might need to be really straight, but because it's quite like this car, what we can do is just, you can see we're steering as far right as we can, and then we get it straight just for a little second, hit the brakes, and then turn in left. As long as you don't hit the brakes super hard, you won't lock up. So the main thing I'd say here is a lot of people try and brake late. They try and chase the braking. It's not important here. Two things that matter are the amount of speed you can roll into the apex, and the other thing is the exit, obviously. So don't go chasing late on the brakes. The main thing is that we get to the apex, and generally the best way to do that and not lock up is by having quite a soft brake. So if you look in the bottom left, you can see it's not a very heavy brake from me. So just roll into the corner, changing down to second, that'll help the car turn in, and be really quick on the throttle pickup. I found in this car, it's worth quite a bit to pick up the throttle slightly earlier than you think. It doesn't have to be the full throttle, but just getting on some throttle really early in the corner really helps it pick up on the exit, and even the minimum speed in the middle of the corner as well. So just really try and focus on pick up the throttle early here. And you can see as soon as I can get the steering lock off and get it kind of straight towards the exit, then we can start getting the full throttle. Your exit point should normally be after this bit of green on the right-hand side here, but you definitely want to feel like you've been pushed out to the exit on that side. And again, like Village, using all the inside curve, I find this car's really good. It does help turn it. This little kink here is flat, and the main thing is just don't run your wheels over the green and get off track. On the inside is quite easy, and no point to run over the black and white here, which can slow it down a little bit as well. So it's using all the parts of the track that are flat, carrying our speed down the straight to the end of the first sector and into Brooklands. Brooklands is third gear, and you'll be approaching in sixth, so down 3 gears. And the main thing I find in this car is you've got to not push the entry too much. You've got to really focus on slowing it down just a little bit earlier than you think. If you push the entry at all, you will get a lot of snap oversteer on the entry or in the middle of the corner, or you'll just lock up. So it's important to just, sacrifice the entry a little bit. I find for the mid corner and the exit makes a big difference. Braking for me is always this 50-meter board is a really good marker in this car just before it. If you're braking at it, you're gonna go wide. So it's a good reference, starting after the 100-meter board and just pushing your points back until you can get to around this point, which is pretty much on the limit. Also, and something else that not everybody does, and it is worth a bit, is getting your right wheels on this entry curve as well. So make sure you do that, and then positioning the car into the apex slightly, not full, like some GT cars and things like that on some other sims or in real life. We don't need to be fully diagonaling to this inside curve, but we do need to be pointing in a little bit. So hit the right curve, point the car in. Braking in pretty much a straight line now that we've got it just pointed in a bit, down to third gear. And then in the second part of the braking phase, I find around here, you've got to bleed out of the brake a bit. So you can see we're still on the brake pedal, but you've got to come out of the brake a little bit to let the car turn and carry some speed. That's what makes it such a tricky corner. So just managing that speed, rolling in, and we want to be on the brakes quite deep in, so we keep turning the car. And then again, as we know in this car, you want to be on the throttle really early, in this case before the apex curve. So you can see I'm on the throttle now, and I'm going to be full throttle quite soon. Well, when we're at the apex, so very early. This helps control this car, especially through a corner like this. Getting that really early throttle will settle it with the open diff. So I hold third. You can go up to fourth if you're really quick, but generally it's just better to hold third into left field and not running all the way out to the right like you might in some cars. This will hurt your positioning for left field and your ability to set up the next corner. So left field, really tricky corner in this car. Don't do what's more of an F3 type thing and fire it in deep and veer it off to that extent. And that's why we're not going all the way right here. Don't be super aggressive on the entry and cut back. Doesn't really work, I find, in this car. What we need to do is be really gentle with it so it doesn't spin out in the middle of the corner. So you can see really soft brake for me if you look at the bottom left. And that's just to slow the car down a little bit. Again, holding third gear. But the main thing is we just want to get that rotation done really early. So again, we can get that really early throttle pickup. And that's where the car's really stable, is on the full throttle. So if we can get to throttle really early and just steer it through the rest of the corner, that'll really help us here. So I'm only really focusing on the exit in this corner, which is why we compromise our exit out of Brooklands here, and we're not using all the exit on the right-hand side. So you see, quite soft, rolling plenty of speed, but just getting the car turned. As soon as the front bites, just get on throttle really fast. You can't use all the exit here. If you run your left wheels all the way to the green, you will go off track. So you have to leave about that much, I'd say, about a tire width or so. It's hard to say what the exact limit is from iRacing because it seems like you can run over the white line. But if you run, say, your right wheels down the middle of this curve, you will probably get off track. So watch out for that. It is important, though, to push that exit, obviously, as much as you can get away with. Here, the iRacing line through here is just run up to the barrier. You can shorten the track distance here. It's not worth much, but it's worth a few hundreds, so you might as well do it. And then up to the left-hand side of the track before cops. Super important to use the entry curb. Does get a little bit bumpy in bits, but such a big difference to how quick you can take this high-speed corner. So make sure, first thing always, is that you're on this curve nice and early. Now looking into the apex at cops, it's a really small brake, I find, this car. You can do it with a lift, but I think it just turns better with a small brake. So again, if you look in the bottom left, super small brake for me just to turn the car. It's all it's for, and down to fifth. That together should give the rotation you need. And again, with the way this car drives, if you can be full throttle by the apex, the car's more stable and you get a really good exit. So that's how we want to drive it. So fifth gear, that really short brake, really aggressive rotation on the way in. And then as we've got the steering lock on, just planting full throttle, hit this curb. It's really important on iRacing that you hit this curb. If you go with your right wheels over here, you will go off track, so watch out for that. And if you bottom out too much on the curb, it will bounce over to the left. So it's really important to line up exactly like this with your left wheels on the tarmac and your right wheels just on top of this green part of the curb you can see here. If you go any more, you will get upset by the curb. But doing this, the car turns so well, and it it's what lets us get to full throttle so early. So, and it's worth a lot of lap time as well. The run up out of Cops into Maggots is usually a tenth or two if you get a good run. So you can see there, it helps turn the car, and we run out to having our left wheels on this kind of secondary curb, this faded curb, and our right wheels on the black and white. If you run your left wheels over that secondary curb, you will get an off track. So just keep that in mind. This is pretty much the limit of what's allowed. So for Maggots, something that a lot of people I don't think do enough is position really early on this right hand side of the track. Again, big bump here, but regardless, super important to get right early. So fully on the right hand side curb, and then here fully on the left. You can use a bit of the sausage. I find it upsets the car a little bit, so I'm not a big fan. But basically, you can see just leaning on the sausage curb. But the main thing is we're maximizing all of this black and white curb, and we've got the car pointing in this direction to widen up Maggots as much as possible. And that's only possible if you run on that right curb on the entry and turn in late for this left-hander. So Maggot should be flat, just. I would probably recommend starting with the lift first because it's only barely flat out, and you will get quite a bit of understeer. Again, if you run your right wheels up to the dirt or right on the edge, you will get off track. So super easy place to get off track in this car, so watch out for that. But main thing is that we're flat out and we carry as much speed as possible, but we're still trying to turn right as much as possible to position for Beckett's. So you can see flat out. I'm about here. The thing is with this car though, you don't have to be over to the right hand side a lot. A lot of people think you have to. A lot of people slow down too much or over position. It's more important to carry the speed, I would say, in this car in this part than it is to position. Unless you're over on the left hand side curb, just this is about where you want to be, potentially half a car width to the right of here. No more than that. So now into the left hand part of this section, small brake, soft brake, and down to fifth gear. And again, if you run over the curb, you will get off track. So it's really important to be accurate. This curb does help turn you quite a bit, so important to get on it. You can see here, I have a short throttle pickup just to carry speed up to the next curb, but quite quickly again on the brakes, lifting off. So it's quite a tricky section because you've got a lot going on. But I think the main part in all this section is carry speed through the first part, and then through these bits, you just got to think about positioning the car as far left out of this corner as possible to open up the exons to hang us straight. So making sure we do that, and that we're hitting these curves because these curves will help turn the car a lot. Fifth gear, and then open up the final part of this section, Beckett's into Chapel, down to fourth gear with a soft brake. And we don't want to, that's why we need to make sure we're braking soft as well. We don't want to take too much speed off in any of these corners because we're not only trying to get the car positioned for the straight, we're just trying to carry a lot of speed through some high speed corners as well. So make sure we're not braking too hard. So soft brake down to fourth helps get the car turned in. This is about right. You can run your right wheels just about onto the green. If you run your car fully over the white line, which there is enough room to with the curb, you will get an off track. So keep that in mind. You can't use all this curb. And this is super easy to get now. So if you run onto the green, you will get an off track. So watch out for that. It seems very easy to get this one now. But yeah, if you want to be full throttle about here, there's no exact reference for it, but generally, once you get on this curve, you just think about full throttle, focus on the hanger straight exit, and then try and smoothen out with the steering as much as possible. But like I said, keep in mind you're going to get an off track. You can push it more, but you got to be careful with where that off track comes. So now into the straight, hanger straight before stow, and again, a lot of people can be quite lazy positioning for stows, so make sure we get back to the left-hand side of the track, at least by this 100-meter board. And it's a bit of an angled entry as well, which just makes it even more important, I find, to get over to the left-hand side so you can start following the white line in rather than coming from the right-hand side of the track and pointing completely the wrong way for the corner. So we meet the white line here. It's quite a late break for us, although I would recommend making sure you look in for the apex quite early here because it's very easy to go deep. Hitting the brakes about here, I'd say for me the reference is, once I've gone past the 100 board, there is this curb as well. It's quite a good reference. Generally, you can't brake off the curb in most cars. But if you go, okay, I've hit the 100-meter board, after that, you got to start thinking about braking. You don't have to make the inside curb, but I do recommend it on this model of the track. It makes a big difference to helping turn the car, so I try to aim for it, and it makes it a lot more consistent as well. Uh, but yeah, so a fairly heavy brake initially to stop the car down to fourth gear, and then again aim for the curb. Try and carry as much speed as possible while still hitting the inside curb is kind of a good way to go about this corner. And then as soon as we're at the curb, you can see I'm already picking up throttle. Once again, this car's super early throttle pickup. And then as soon as I feel like I can see the exit and I'm going to make it, full throttle, hit it. You can now run a bit wider here than you used to be able to. So now you can run with your right tires just going into the black and white curb. Again, a tire width more than this, and you'll get a penalty. So I went off track. So I'll watch out for that. So into the final chicane, again, another corner where position early. You can see here straight away after I go away from Stowe, I don't turn left, just point this way towards the pit lane. You're already facing this direction, or you should be when you exit Stowe if you've really pushed it. So just keep the car straight. Keep the car straight. No point scrubbing the tires. And then position with the white line as it comes towards you. Again, you can use this curb. I find it's a little bit bumpy and upsets this car about under the braking, so I don't use it. Just keep the car straight, up to the white line, down to second gear for the chicane. And we want to run as close as possible to the sausage curb. You can see I actually clip it on this lap, and it doesn't upset it. So you can just get away with nicking it like that. But the main thing is that we get as tight left as possible to open up the right. In this car, it isn't that slow a corner. I think the main trap in a single seater like this is people over braking, over slowing the car. You can roll quite a bit of speed, you know. So you can see I don't keep the car straight and really stop it and then turn. I have quite a heavy brake here, but already at this part of the corner, I'm turning in. I'm focusing on carrying speed, even though it's second gear corner. So I think that's quite important here that we're rolling a lot of speed with this car through this part of the corner. And as soon as you feel like you've got it rotated, hit full throttle. Hit full throttle for this little gap, and you should be able to just about keep it pinned. It depends. I find if you really push the left-hander, you will have to lift through the right. I think if you can take the right-hander flat out, completely flat out, it probably means you didn't push the left-hander enough. So if you're looking to gain time and that's flat out, then it probably means you need to roll more speed through this left. So and it's again a bit like Village in the Loop. It's difficult to kind of give an exact advice as to where you need to position the car. I generally think the middle of the track. This is roughly the middle of the track. As long as you feel like you've gotten all over this curb and you got it slowed down enough in second, and you carry a lot of speed in the gap between the two, which you do here. The only other important thing is getting as close as possible to this sausage curb. And the more you want the car to turn, the more you lift out the throttle. And that's kind of the idea here is, okay, I need to lift out as as little as I can while still reaching the inside sausage curb, which we do here. And then once you go past it, you can start picking up the throttle again and run all the way to the exit. Obviously, don't hit this curb because it will throw you off. So just run up as close as you can to it. Push this corner a lot, and you'll get a really good exit. And then coming through the last corner, which is easy flat, and that's the end of the lap. So that's a lap at Silverstone Grand Prix. Thanks for watching this week's lap guide at Silverstone in the iRacing Formula iR-04. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below, and be sure to see future lap guides and subscribe to the Coach Dave Academy YouTube channel. See you next time.